This is not your classic spy genre hero, and it's the nature of that underdog that really makes it intriguing.
Although it's set in the world of intelligence, and we've seen lots of these stories before, it's different in that our hero is not a special agent. He's an intelligence gatherer who wants to avenge his wife's death.
I just wanted to do something that was elegant, sophisticated, smart, and from the point of view of an unexpected hero doing extraordinary things.
The Amateur existed as a book back in the 80s and had been a movie previously. The producers, Hutch Parker, Dan Wilson, had wanted for quite a while to see this come to a new audience. Spy films are so often robust, full of machismo. Charlie Heller isn't those things.
You look at the moment where Charlie flinches after an explosion, and we both thought, yeah, that's good. We've never seen that before.
The cool version of this, if it isn't the Amateur, is walking away, doesn't even flinch as the building blows up in the background. We're trying to undercut that.
Bang, bang.
You know, you're used to seeing a guy walk away without blinking, but it's impossible not to flinch. I would have one, and then I would start to hustle after the first one.
Action.
Rami, being such a gifted actor, is bringing a whole kind of complexity and nuance to it.
The convoy? We targeted our allies.
He's a very unique and unusual actor who brings a really original kind of energy that gives his work a certain unpredictability.
Rami brings intensity, a certain quirkiness, an electric energy. He's just somebody you want to watch, you want to travel with.
It's been so much fun to finally get to work with Rami. We've known each other for a number of years, and it's been really fun to watch him come into his own as a producer on this movie too, and to watch him behind the monitor.
Fortunately, I had the backing of a studio that I've been working with for a long time. They gave me all the agency, not only to act in it, but to produce it as well.
Sorry, I'm gone.
I was very aware that we had a great script. It would attract great actors. But it was nice to be able to call upon people who I wanted to work with all my life.
What's fascinating about the story is along the way, Helen meets a succession of rather wonderful characters. So it really is a rich ensemble with some really serious actors.
Every day, it was just, who am I gonna meet and who am I gonna have to marshal my talents to reach that same level? There was a constant feeling of, let's just up the game, day in and day out.
Bye.
Rachel Brosnahan is just such an asset to have as part of the ensemble. She brings an energy to the studio floor, to the location floor, every time she arrives.
Rachel and I have been wanting to work together for so long, and so we were constantly meeting up and talking about working together. I think we both inherently knew there would be chemistry.
Remind you of me.
Don't need reminding.
Rami and I have talked a lot about how it feels like they're soulmates. They bring out the best in each other. It's just a pure love. And so it makes it that much more difficult when Sarah's taken hostage and ultimately killed in a really brutal way.
The scene where Sarah is killed is challenging from a story point of view because it's remote from our principal character. He's not there to see the key crime unfold.
He takes Sarah as a hostage.
The cool thing about shooting this awful death scene at St. Pancras is that it's shot both by CCTV and also by handheld cell phone cameras. These days, if something like this happened, it wouldn't be unlikely that a number of people might, even as they're in the middle of this crisis, try to tape it.
So we've tried to create a big scale dramatic scene, but captured with the energy and the immediacy of those sorts of witnesses.
So we needed to make sure we had it from all the different angles, so Heller can piece it together.
I don't want you to kill them. I want to kill them myself.
The brutality of what happened is one of the main things that sets him on this journey.
Let's use Henderson.
Lawrence Fishburne's character is called Henderson. And the first day Lawrence turns up, he says, well, I had a friend who was Marine. He was called Henderson, and he was always known as Hendo. So from now on, I'm called Hendo. And you don't say no to Lawrence.
My friends call me Hendo. You will call me Colonel Henderson.
Who better to be the person who trains you and slaps you in the face?
Do it now!
All right, all right.
Put your finger on the trigger.
The relationship, in terms of master-teacher, come on, gives us an opportunity to really, really find some wonderful things to play together.
I think he handled that with such nuance and grace and could have easily come off as a villain, and somehow you just don't want him to ever leave that film.
Maybe y'all misjudged this individual?
You think?
Those three actors, the lead roles in the CIA, Danny Holt and Lawrence, brought a gravitas to the scenes. And we wanted that. We wanted to feel the authority and the danger that these guys bring into any scene. And to see that kind of level of actor opposite Rami and see the way they lift each other's game and they fence and they experiment with the language in the scene is really impressive. I can just sit back and let it happen.
Charlie, you gotta get out of there. You've got to go. Right now.
What I love about Katrina's work and the character of Inquiline is there's a extreme vulnerability, a sense of loss that they both share.
I wasn't prepared for how quiet the world would become.
She is very much more equipped than Charlie to handle any adversary. And yet Katrina does it in this very elegant, sophisticated way. It's very powerful in the film.
What I loved about her is, again, it feels like this very unlikely person who has a kind of mission of justice in a way, which I thought was really interesting about her.
We had an extraordinary ensemble at large, the best of the best, and they brought it day in and day out. Michael Stuhlbarg, Julianne Nicholson, and then John Bernthal, who has been a longtime friend of mine.
You kidding me?
He does things on the day that just make you feel so alive as an actor, because I don't want to throw him under the bus, but he'll improv quite a bit.
He's a killer, by the way.
A director could easily get jarred by that, but we had one of the best in James Hawes.
Give and take away. Exactly. Give and take away.
James Hawes, yeah, James. He's a very thoughtful director. He's very thorough, and he's very interested in the details.
I'm more than fortunate to have James Hawes as our director. Big budget motion picture, and he was calm, decisive, and extremely thoughtful.
And cut. I love that one.
The way that he works is very nuanced. He's very much about, you know, the very small details of a story and how those characters move within that world.
And he's just very sure of what he wants. It seems like such a given, but it's such an incredible asset as a director. There's just an ease with it all, which just creates such a lovely environment.
And he's very collaborative. He's always kind of interested in having his actors pose questions and present ideas.
It's been so much fun working with James. He has such a clear vision for this film and has obviously spent so much time with it. It's just been a really nice group of people who are making a movie that at times can be dark and challenging, and so it's nice to have that style of leadership.
It's an excellent script. It's the kind of old-fashioned thriller that I think we should be making more of.
There's such heart to this film, which I think is going to give it this real depth.
I wanted to make an action film that speaks volumes, and The Amateur does just that.
One of the fun things about a spy movie like this is it goes on a road trip. It's got great locations. You're in DC, you're in London, you're in Paris, Marseille, Russia, Istanbul. It takes you places. It's a real adventure.
We chose places that were not the obvious places you would go, and it provides a certain grit.
The bit that I enjoy the most is where you're kind of creating those worlds, especially on a film like this, which is so location heavy. I can actually say that this film has more set numbers than any film I've ever worked on.
We had an exceptional set designer named Maria Jerkovic. And to have her design our CIA headquarters was prolific in a way that it put you in a place where you felt like you were right there in the depths of the CIA.
Nice office you have.
Yeah, if you don't like sunlight or fresh air.
All the stuff that's meant to be in America is actually shot in the UK. So for our version of the CIA, we found a location which we did a whole number on.
My office was at one time the head of the British nuclear department. Way outside of London in the countryside, it feels a little bit like the Pentagon. You know you're walking through the halls of power.
I wanted to evoke a little bit of the heritage of the film, particularly some of those classic 1970s paranoid political thrillers. So there is just a little hint of the retro chic feeling about it.
You're on 2 floors of the CIA, the one where the directors all work, which is the more conventional office space, and then where Hela works, down in the basement. It really is in the bowels of the building. And it was important to make them feel very, very different. On the ground floor, we made it look as if it's the basement by completely covering all the windows with scenery. It's amazing how many cheats you can make doing what we do. As long as it sort of smells right and feels right, you can get away with an awful lot.
We gave them a lot of glass-walled offices, as if it's transparent. They've got nothing to hide from their co-workers. Visually, that allows me much more depth and interest, and you can see people bending an ear to see who's meeting with who now, who's in trouble.
You need to take some time. Go home, Charlie.
One of my favorite locations was the farmhouse that we shot the beginning of Sarah and Heller's love story in. It's just this beautiful house on a beautiful piece of land with these fields out back.
The Hela house I thought was going to be really, really tricky because American vernacular architecture is different to English vernacular architecture. But we found this one location that the minute I saw it was like, oh my God, this is extraordinary. This actually looks very, very American. And we actually built the barn in a different location, so VFX are putting 2 locations together.
It just feels like something out of a storybook for this storybook romance, but it also feels real and like a place that has so much history. And so it makes such an impact on screen.
One of the great things about this genre is you want to open up a world to the audience. You want to give scale to it. So the initial killing happens in London, and we were filming at St Pancras Station there. And then, of course, we have the story of Hela's journey. So here we are arriving first in Paris. Action! Where we are doing a big stunt scene. The first of the revenge killings in his quest for vengeance.
And cut. Check it. I thought that was great.
And then we're going to travel on to Marseille, we go to Berlin, to Madrid, across to Istanbul. So it really is quite a quest across Europe.
I love being out on the streets, shooting in Istanbul, shooting in Marseille, all over the place. There's nothing better.
Marseille is a very particular place. It's got an incredible underground music scene and graffiti scene and club scene, and that thumps its way through the soundtrack and into the visuals in the movie.
When you're working on a film with lots of different locations, it's sort of trying to find which countries will give us the broadest amount of faces to it. For example, Inquiline's house is meant to be in Turkey, but we're shooting a lot of what's meant to be in Turkey in Marseille. We found a really great little bit of coast outside Marseille, and we all really liked it straight away. It's a hybrid set location, her house. We found a location which was a restaurant right on the coast, and we're building within it. So you're taking bits of it that you're just redecorating and other bits of it that you're building. That's something we do quite often.
This is the first place I've stayed in for more than a month.
I'm always amazed how locations find these places. It's just like, it's really incredible. We have this great little cottage that's Inquiline's hideout, and not only is the set itself incredible, but then you get to go outside and it's the light and it's everything. And I think as an actor, when you have all of these things, it just fills in so many sensory gaps for you when you're working, that it allows you to just really go deep into the character.
Inquiline is a really mysterious character. So I wanted somewhere that felt dangerous and on the edge of Europe and more likely to be a place of espionage and risk. So we chose Istanbul, which is such an exotic and rich place. Every which way you point the camera, there's depth and texture and scale.
But constantly we were using Marseille for Istanbul, we were using Istanbul for Russia, we were at sea for days. That's what gave this movie so much scope. You could do these things on stage somewhere, but when you're out there doing it properly all over the world, taking the time to do it with the best of the best, then you're setting yourself up for an extraordinary cinematic experience. It's a unique set piece that I've just never seen in film before.
It was a scene that took a lot of planning. It's without doubt the most expensive shot in the movie.
This is such a challenge because there's so many elements involved. And obviously the water just makes everything more difficult.
It's a scene that we all read and thought, how on earth are we going to achieve that?
Suspended 16 stories above the ground, made of 3 panels with air gaps to improve the strength.
You may have seen a pool explode, but not the inner workings.
Okay, you're going to have to clue me in.
Integrity. Yeah, it's all about integrity. If I have the math right, I should move.
There's an understanding of the mechanics behind it that make it all the more impressive.
It was a scene that took a lot of imagining. I mean, the first thing was the location. In the film, it was supposed to be in Madrid, but we found a pool in London, in fact, which is roughly as described.
I saw very early on in the research process the Embassy Gardens pool, which is extraordinary. It's this bridge, this glass bridge between 2 buildings, which is a swimming pool. I actually thought straight away we have to shoot here. We all thought that, because it is spectacular.
It's an extraordinary glass pool that straddles 2 16-story buildings.
Okay, Hella POV applies in swimming, over Hella and the trigger.
The time spent planning it was, to some extent, the biggest challenge, because we had to make sure that we had, first of all, the vision for what the shots should look like, and then the methodology for how we could possibly achieve it.
You held a gun to my wife's head.
So we knew we could shoot the first part of the scene on location, but the hotel was not going to let us explode their pool. So we then built a pretty big section of the pool in the studio.
So this is our Sky Pool set, the special effects version. It's the same width as the real Sky Pool in the hotel, and just under half, about 1/3 of the length of the pool. We've got 66,000 litres of water, which is 66 tonnes. So you can see the size of the rig that's needed and the size of the steel that we need to build it.
We had thousands of litres of water to an extraordinary weight at about 20 feet height. So we could drop sections into a tank as if there's been a crack in the pool, sucking the poor swimmer down.
This is a remote that controls a device that's been decompressing the air between the sheets of glass beneath you. If I trigger it, the glass will shatter. So tell me where he is, or swim very fast.
the glass gets decompressed, which creates a cracking effect, which is visual effects going to do the cracks. So we've built a section in glass, cracked glass at the front. So on a cue, we're going to blow the glass with pyrotechnics, and then the bottom falls out of the pool.
Okay, here we go. Set and action.
We have a system that collapses the trapdoors underneath, and we pull them on a cue, and that drops the trapdoor, which is all made of glass. So we've had to arrest the trapdoor so to control the descent. So we have to make it free fall and then catch it again, which we're using hydraulics for. And that stops us smashing all the glass each take for the floor, because we have a glass floor that they can light through. So the real challenge is how we can drop 66 tons of water on a glass trapdoor and keep resetting it for take 2 and 3. So without, that's been quite a challenge.
So we had 5 cameras running on it because there's only so many times you can reset it. It was a 5-hour reset every time. And also, you've got stuntmen who you have to think about first and foremost, because there is some risk involved in what you're doing, because we had to pull him free just before the full drop became properly dangerous. So it's all down to the planning.
Okay, here we go, guys. Roll camera. Yeah, real quick. Ready, set, and action.
Once you break a sequence like that down, it becomes a lot less daunting because you're just getting that shot or that part of the shot. I mean, there was more to do in that one because we needed to film the impacts of the falling pool and water. So then we built bits of the location, again in the studio, and then put what are called tip tanks right up in the ceiling of the studio and chucked huge amounts of water and debris down to film the impact as it hit the floor, hit the furniture, hit the restaurant window.
This is such a challenge because there's so many elements involved, and obviously the water just makes everything more difficult. It's been a great collaboration how we're combining the real sky pool in the hotel with the physical effects and the visual effects department. It's been a really good team effort to create a great effect for the movie.
So it is a jigsaw, but that's the thrill for a director, then eventually seeing that come together. Anytime I read a new script, I start imagining the score very early on. There's a rawness to this, there's an emotion to this story. It's not just a spy thriller. And you could feel the kind of visceral music that was going to need.
Haller is much more like an intelligent person rather than a pure killer. So to find the tonality in the music that reflects his intelligence while also having tension and grittiness was a challenge. The Amateur is a little bit more like a puzzle where things are slowly coming together. You have obviously action in it, but the tension is always under the surface. It needs the right tonality for all the things that are gritty, but also leaning towards emotionality, but then they collapse and then you have like raw sounds.
I'm very sorry, Mr. Haller.
What? Your wife has been killed?
At the heart of this film is a story of huge emotional loss, where our leading character loses his wife. And we have an extra challenge narratively in that Sarah disappears from the movie quite early on, but her presence is there. Her presence is driving Charlie through it. So we needed the score to tell that part of the story and to establish what her theme was.
I wanted to find certain melodies that I can use for all the emotional scenes.
So in very little real estate right at the beginning of the film, we hear Sarah's theme, and then that is developed and echoed and haunts us and advances the story through the rest of the movie.
There's always a lot of emotion in the memories of him and his wife, and then there's the thriller aspect of finding the people that killed her. I needed a kind of scale of instrumentation and variation of sounds to make the score recognizable. And at the same time, I had to find a certain tonality to get the grittiness in it, which I tried with electronics, but also with experimental sounds from strings, involving a little bit of a different approach to your instrument to actually get this weird tension, to give it a kind of voice. And the LCO is providing that. They are helping me to find the language to create these kind of weird approaches.
Why? Because he killed my wife. Tell me where he is. Tell me! Tell me!
What is very effective for me is always using glissandos coming from different sides of the scale, so the notes coming from low and high to the center in a way. It gave the score quite a grip and also an identity.
I think the gritty element that Volker has brought to it is absolutely crucial. It elevates it from being a familiar orchestral score. It gives it an edge and at times a dissonance that reflects the world of the story. And it's an extra colour in telling the emotional journey of Hella. Volker is such an extraordinary, patient, creative collaborator. It's just exciting to be working with him again.
I really loved working with James Hawes. We had a wonderful relationship already beforehand, so it felt very natural in a way.
It's always different when you work with the collaborator the second time, because obviously there's a shorthand in the language, but there's an element of trust of what the relationship's going to deliver.
The challenging part between the musician and the director in making the music for the film is that you have to find words, and the words have to be translated into sound. It's a long process of finding those elements. With James, we had already defined a lot of those. There was still a trust, and I think that's one of the most important things when you work with a director a couple of times.
Looking for a way to describe Volker's magic, I conjured the phrase Volker dust. And it's his special composing dust that he can sprinkle onto a score that makes it so distinctive.
If it's a good score, it doesn't feel like it's overpowering the film and the content. It's always supporting the film.
It's giving me tingles on the back of my neck to think about it. You sit there with dozens of live players outside, bringing emotional life to the story you've spent months trying to conjure. It is utterly thrilling and does something that only music can do.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, it can't be that secret if you're working on it here.
Habit.
You ever wonder what they do with all the stuff you dig up for them?
It's not my job.
Yeah, but you never wonder.
No, it's the CIA. I gotta trust that they'll make the right call. Ours is not to reason why.
I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd have to look them in the eye and know.
Yeah, sometimes maybe it's better not to know.
Congratulations! You just set a record for the worst land navigation time ever.
I figured it'd be safer in the day.
Oh. Well, the assignment, idiot, was to travel through the night, not the morning.
No, the assignment was to find my way back, and I did.
Huh.
Charlie, there's somebody else. He's already in the basement. Charlie, he's coming, okay? You've got to go. Okay, the next left, 10 meters to your right. Hard right now.
They're all down.
You've got to clean exit now. The Schiller guy is good.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not making any mistakes. I'm hardly finding any images, not even a name check. Now that he knows that somebody's targeting him, he's going to be even more discreet.
Okay. So we work our way up the ranks.
But Elish is not taking my bait either. Not even with an actual cache of weapons.
Wait, where did you get a cache of weapons?
Do you know how many weapons the KGB have hidden all over the world?
Then maybe there's something more enticing you can get your hands on.
I mean, NATO has the best stuff.
Good. Good. Try that.
So we keep working on Elish then.